Welcome back, everyone. Need to prep the museum. We've got a tour coming in. Make sure lights are turned on. Cal is in position. Okay. Things are unlocked.
All right, I think we're ready.
I got the monkey exhibit going. Her is in the right position.
All right, I think we're ready. Let me get some food to eat, and then I'll be ready to conduct a tour.
Okay. Oh, I need to put some more. Need to do some more meats over here. Half, split in half.
The dance hall.
Yep, tour.
Don't worry, I'm not punching her.
So sorry.
Don't laugh, I'm serious.
Oh, it's okay. It's all right.
Can you behave, Ambrose?
All right,
Oh,
everyone.
behave.
We don't
Yeah,
know them.
Ambrose.
They're just Morgan's imaginary friends.
Oh,
Oh yes, Morgan's imaginary friend.
Yep.
Oh my god.
Oh, these are the ones that your imaginary friends. Huh.
Yeah. Why would I imagine people like this? I know. It's crazy.
Many people have asked this question and still have not come to a decision.
It's best not to even think about what goes on in your mind.
Honestly, it hurts.
Alright, if everyone's ready, we can head to the museum.
Yes,
Alright,
please.
let's go that way.
We don't like the walking.
I'm going in through the mouth.
Yes, you have to read the warnings through the mouth.
No. Why you need
Uh,
food?
No, I might have to run back to the ship in a bit to get some stuff.
Why didn't you get food?
Why
Yeah.
didn't you get
We have food in the
Oh, fuck,
museum
snack.
if you need a snack.
Yeah, we have popcorn.
Up at the food basket first, I guess. Alright, everyone, welcome. Bring yourselves inside. Be sure to read the signage on your way in.
Oh, no children. Sorry. Oh, wow. Open Friday at 6:30 p.m. EST. Wow. How crazy.
Well,
Well, it's always 6:30 somewhere.
Also, did you hear that? They have more popcorn inside. You're not going to run out.
Popcorn.
Yay!
Popcorn.
do we need to go to the food basket now? We can. Let me welcome everyone in.
look, Jeff, it's
I'm alright for a little bit. I just, I might need to eat something soon, so.
Alright. Well, we'll get started. Leave your preconceived notions of the normal world at this very threshold, and enter the world of the mysterious, the unusual, and the odd at BoggOdd Oddities Museum. By entering the museum, you agree management not responsible for any and all incidents herein. No children allowed unless they enjoy horrors and nightmares.
Funny enough, I had to sign a contract for that when I started talking to Morgan.
That's a lie. You're a liar.
No, yeah, it was.
Let the
it was
lady carry on
essential.
with the tour, Ambrose.
Shut up.
Alright, we'll make our way in. Right this way.
Please step lively into the next chamber.
Our tour begins here, just on your right as you enter through the doorway. If you'll fan around and get a nice position here, we'll begin the tour.
I will close the door behind me. If you need to exit the building, please see me and I'll let you out.
Yes. That'll just keep anyone from joining our tour without permission.
Yes, we don't like the unduly interruptions.
No, we do not. Alright, if we're ready to begin, we will. At a blazing hot tropical free port, there stood a quiet specialty cheese shop at the end of an alley. You're probably questioning, is it appropriate to locate a cheese shop in the melting hot heat? The answer is no, but not because of the heat, however. It was because of the feral cats. The cats had taken to begging at the cheese shop. As patrons left, they would kindly drop a crumb or two, leading the cats to then wait for the next patron. Eventually, the roof support beams groaned and popped the weight of waiting cats. The shop owner attempted to show them away at first, but then realized the cats would not touch the crumbs of the most pungent cheeses. The patron remarked, "It's so hot today, the stone walls are almost sizzling." As the patron rounded the corner, the shop owner sprang into action, gathering the most pungent of cheeses, began to press them into the wall, where they melted on, sticking them to the stonework. It really did work. To the cats, the stench of the cheese was so intense that the cats fled to the far side of the island. The shop rested well that evening. Suddenly, though, the roof supports began to creak and groan. Running out into the dark to chase the cats off the bowing roof, the shop owner caught a glimpse of them in the moonlight. The cats first turned their eyes and then their beaks toward the shop owner. It is then the shop owner realized the roof was covered not in cats, but in starving vultures. Any questions so far?
Not really. No.
All right, we'll move on to the next oddity.
Speaking of starving, should we offer some popcorn now?
If we can, if anyone's hungry, Boggert will be kind enough to lead you around to our food area.
I appreciate it.
So bring you right this way. The barrels here contain an assortment of different foods, and I believe there's beverage in there as well. Take your time, decide what you like. Could be different foods in different barrels, I'm not sure. Try not to look at too many of the oddities while you're here.
Thanks for fitting us in, Boggert. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. We do appreciate having visitors here. We'll make our way to the next oddity here.
Oh God, I don't know if I want to go in there.
Has everyone finished grazing?
That's what I said last time, and they yelled at me for reading.
Oh, sorry.
If you're not here, say you're not here. All right, I think everyone's here.
Probably good.
The Great Northern Factory disaster took place on a particularly cold, dark, rainy evening. The main source of heat in the frozen north was a giant fireplace located below this smokestack here beside me. The factory backed up to a very large rock mountain, and the entrance to a great coal mine was built off of the factory down into the depths of the mountains. The top of the mountain was a known habitat for an assortment of animals. The employees of the factory found a particularly large snake roasting on the coals late one afternoon and proceeded to prepare it for their dinner pot. It wasn't unusual for someone to bring whatever they had to share, although they could not determine who had brought the snake. They made a feast of the snake anyways and went back to work. As the evening grew colder and darker, they placed more and more coal onto the fires. What no one realized is that the snake deliciously roasting on the fires had chased a rather plump sheep from the mountaintop. The snake and the sheep had both fallen over the edge and landed on top of the smokestack. The snake plunged further down into the hot coals below, but the sheep was wedged high above the factory. The toxic smoke had already built up and weakened most of the workers to the point that they could not get out by the time the panic began. All but 3 workers were killed in this tragedy. The death toll was said to be near 458 lives, and it would remain the largest number of people killed by a single sheep for at least 2 more decades.
I wonder
Wow.
what happened decades later.
I know.
We all wonder that. It's hard to know, though.
Sheep.
Oh,
Oh God, get out. The virus is bad.
Before,
I had
Before you behind me here is a giraffe examination chair. It has been placed here as a public service by the Giraffe Handlers Association. When a giraffe needs to be examined for multiple reasons, it is much easier to inspect that giraffe from closer to their own height. The doctor will climb up to the chair, and the giraffe will be brought closer in for the inspection purposes. But what type of inspection, you ask? Well, one purpose is to inspect whether the giraffe have the giraffe-like teeth or whether they have the less common human-like teeth, of course. But a far more common reason is to see if the ears have been laid with the spider eggs again, as giraffe ears are to be the perfect habitat for spider eggs. Laying their eggs in the giraffe's warm ear hairs, they lie garden until the time comes for the hatching. If you have giraffes tame or wild near your home, be sure that they are not shaking their heads frequently. This is the very first sign that the spider egg laying has occurred. If your giraffes have ears infested with spider eggs, the time will come that they will hatch, and the giraffe's head shaking will deposit hatchlings around and throughout your home.
Bad giraffes to come
Just
to
watch
our
for
pool.
them. Hopefully they don't shake their heads. If they're shaking their heads, they already have the eggs in their ears. It's far too late at that point.
Luckily, they live on the other side of our island for us.
Oh,
Well, now you know what you got to do, Isaac. When you get one, you got to build the giraffe examination chair and
There you
check
go.
whether it's got spider eggs in his ears.
have a
What
chair.
the hell going in there when there's spider eggs?
We'll investigate.
Mud?
All right, we'll move forward to the next exhibit.
It is a spider. I don't want to go.
It's fine. There's no giraffes.
You'll be okay.
It'll be fine.
All right, thank you. If the spiders come and I scream really, really loudly, I apologize in advance.
That's all right. Just if you feel anything that feels like a spider, just be sure to look and see.
Yeah, don't say something like that!
You stand in
If
front
the
of
ears
me. I
are
get
itching, you're welcome to scratch them. It's fine. It happens a lot. In a far-off kingdom, a rotten king reigned supreme. He was known to frequently decide he had been slighted and place people in prison to be punished, or worse. The king unexpectedly ordered a particularly complicated feast from his chef, Arthur, in the middle of the evening. The chef and the kitchen staff worked frantically, as tired as they were in the middle of the night, to create a culinary masterpiece. The feast was a triumph, and the king later sent word to see if he may speak with the chef. Word arrived very early in the morning. The king would be in to the kitchens within the hour, and the kitchen staff readied themselves for his visit. The king arrived with his guards and quietly toured the kitchens as he thoroughly inspected many things. Nothing was said, and the king looked at his guards as he approached the exit and nodded. The king's guards proceeded to destroy the kitchens, the pots and pans, kitchen tools. The guards turned to the chef and said, "The king would like you to know he's displeased with last night's feast. You forgot to serve sea salt instead of salt with his meal." The chef was aghast. He knew he had served sea salt. He had prepared it himself. He only said "I" before he was cut off, and he was told he was to be removed from the king's staff and placed in prison to await his punishment. The king felt assured mistakes would no longer be made in his kitchen, and as a test, a few weeks later, he had a new feast prepared for the opening of the king's tournament, at the end of which a victorious knight stood remaining. The king was so unhappy because he felt slighted again, and his favorite did not win the tournament, that he rushed the entrant, dagger in hand. The entrant flicked away the dagger and gave the king what was intended for the entrant. The king now removed from life and power, the entrant made their way to the throne and were seated. The shocked crowd dropped the facade of reverence for the rotten old king and warmly cheered a new powerful leader. The guards, also shocked, but no longer hiding their contempt for the Rotten King, said, "All hail the new king!" To which the entrant removed the helmet and said, "Queen." "All hail the new queen," said the guards. "What would you have us do, your majesty?" they asked. "First they bring me Arthur, the chef from the prisons." Arthur approached the new queen, and he quietly asked, "Daughter, what has happened? And are those my pots and pans you're wearing?" "Oh, there's time to explain it all, father," she said. "They sent them to me at the blacksmith shop to repair them. They didn't know I was your daughter." She smiled pleasantly at her father, and they waved toward the crowd over the tournament field and the cold, dead body of the former king. "You always said that your pots and pans would bring us good fortune, father. You just didn't know how right you were."
Very nice.
I like that one. That's a good one.
It's
Thank
nice
you.
of the
Yep.
spiders, huh?
Now we try to alternate between horror and something a little better than horror. Slightly
Very
better
nice.
than horror.
I mean, you know, minus the dead king, but it sounds like he deserved it, so.
Aye.
I didn't seem too distraught over it. It's only us. The stories come to us, you know. It's what we get. We get the stories we get.
Before we enter into the next room, in case of emergencies, we will direct you to the nearest exit. So please stay calm in the next room.
Oh,
Oh god.
Oh,
I have less than 8 legs.
oh, okay, I see. Hey, why am I leading?
Put you back this time.
Well, I mean,
Oh no. Are we ready? On a roasting hot desert island, it rarely rained. House fires were happening frequently. To help combat the fires, the residents used what they had to craft 2 fire carts. These carts, each pulled by the best rhinosaur that the island could breed, were filled with water and pulled from location to location. Raspberry the monkey, found wandering an island used as a turtle habitat, don't look at me, was part of that. The head of the fire chief. He was the pet of the head of the fire cart haulers. Out on one of their first patrols, they discovered something unusual. Raspberry had previously been trained to pull a cart. They decided that given the constant insistence that he handed the reins, Raspberry would be trained to drive the rhinosaur of cart number 2. It worked more than well, for Raspberry was already a complete natural at cart handling, needing no instruction at all. They even crafted a very small seat just for him. This allowed the others to focus more on the fires. Months passed, and the carts raced from fire to fire, Raspberry excitedly guiding the cart all the way. One afternoon, after a particularly difficult morning of fighting a long series of fires, the bell rang out again. It was time to ready the carts, and Raspberry couldn't be located. The head of the fire cart haulers went to Raspberry's room and found the monkey asleep in bed. Knowing the poor creature must be exhausted after the morning that they had had fighting fires, they had another member of the fire cart haulers pull the reins instead. They left without poor tired Raspberry to head to the fires. Along the way, they spotted an unreported house fire and slowed cart number 2 to water it so that they could catch back up to cart number 1. While spraying the house, the front door burst open, and a soaking wet Raspberry, extinguished torch in hand, emerged from the home. Not believing that Raspberry could be both asleep and at the scene of the fire, his bed was checked again. Neatly shaped and arranged was a pair of trousers, made to look just like a sleeping Raspberry the monkey. Raspberry was wise at a great many things, cart hauling and deception being 2 of his greatest talents. He was returned to the offices of the Turtle Sanctuary where he was found, so that he could retire from his very busy life. The fires stopped overnight, and the fire cart haulers were quiet, until one afternoon a flare was fired through the skies, and a representative of a neighboring island had arrived to their port. They wanted some advice on fire carts, but they had been plagued with fires recently. They also needed a small seat on the front. You see, they had the oddest thing. A monkey who knew how to drive a cart.
Bit of a
Never
chimp
trust
arson
monkeys.
Z there.
Yeah.
That was a stretch, dude.
The monkey can hear
They normally are.
A little bit of a stretch.
you.
Yes,
Yeah,
careful, the monkeys can hear you. This one has his tail dipped in coal, maybe.
There's just a little soot on the tail. That's fine. It's perfectly fine.
Perfectly fine.
So
Just
it's
come
not
this
it's
way.
not the monkey, right?
No, it's
No,
not
no,
raspberry.
get closer and have a look, Morgan.
Oh, this is... Listen, you're not raspberry, are you? No.
Keep an eye on that monkey.
Yes, do
Oh
not set
god,
me on fire.
okay. Oh, nearly fell down that hole.
Falling on his splats. Management not responsible for any hole incidents here in
Especially falling into holes, yes.
hole falling, hole dropping. No, this is not a tavern filled with delicious libations. In fact, if you had been here 50 years ago, you would be dead. It wasn't unusual a long time ago to place additives into your spirits to give them an interesting afternote, be it bitter, sweet, or bittersweet. It was an unusually crowded evening the night before, and would be again at a combination inn and tavern. The tavern keep was far too busy to go for the ingredients for the top note to add to the drinks for the next evening. The tavern keep's sibling was sent to pick up the rare and delicious green sweet ingredient, Magistine. The herbologist, however, was also out, and in their stead their apprentice was working. The assistant herbologist mistook the requested Magistine for the more common pest remover, maggot stem. Nearly identical in both appearance and flavor, coupled with the unfortunate similarity in name, the switch was made. The maggot stem was delivered to the tavern and used to give the tavern's libations their signature smooth sweetness. As is custom with a spirit house attached to overnight accommodations, the drink poured heavily and quickly. The hallucinations began about an hour into the evening. The vomiting began shortly thereafter. Ingestion of maggot stem was said to produce hallucinations such as liquid running down the walls, inanimate objects breathing, skies filled with flying animals, and the mistaking of human form for animal. The chaos of these visions, coupled with the vomiting, began a putrid battle inside the tavern, where all fought for their very lives. Anyone who made it outside was driven back in by the visions filling the skies. Those victors who survived the vomitous battle were said to have lain unconscious on these very floorboards until their heart also slowed to death.
Damn.
Oh
Not
my.
a tavern I would have
Glad
wanted
that
to
didn't
visit.
happen last night.
Yeah. I forgot all
Oh,
about that,
God.
honestly.
You always be sure to ask at the tavern, what exactly do you add to these drinks? Just to be sure. And then you ask also, does anyone check to make sure those ingredients have been added?
Yeah,
I don't know.
what do you put in the drinks?
I have no idea what Amber's
you
put in
fine?
Madeline's drink last
Are you
night, and
falling
she fell
over?
asleep.
No.
I don't know, right up until the heart stopping, sounded like quite a fun evening.
No.
Oh, wait, the vomit.
Wait, the vomiting. Wow.
I forgot about it. The hallucinations sound fun.
I mean, there's plenty of other things you can do to get without having to throw up as well.
All right, are we ready to move to the next exhibit?
Aye.
If you've been to a hot, humid tropical island, you know all too well the heat can be unrelenting. Two elderly brothers were looking for the lost goat near their home when they stumbled upon something, a very large abandoned well. The well had run low of water, but the inside had a beautiful pool remaining at the bottom. The brothers knelt beside the well's lid, and when they flung it down, they could feel the cool, refreshing air blow past them. They thought about and discussed that well the remainder of the night. They woke the next day with a plan. They would put a ladder down into the well and see what was inside. They slipped from the final ladder rung into a cool, dark water and enjoyed the most luxuriously pleasant soak, neck high in perfectly chilled water. The water drained a bit more over time, and instead of floating, they now had to kneel or sit on the bottom of the well. This did not suit their aging frames very well, and they began to talk once again of a new plan. It was decided to make the well a bit more comfortable, and they moved in some furniture, using ropes and the goat, which was finally fun time, to lower things down from the hatch above the well. This would be their final plan. Their friend who knew of the well, and having not seen the brothers for some time, began to worry and look for them. When they approached the well, they could already tell something was wrong. The scent of mold and mildew and end of life met the friend well before they made it to the well. For you see, as the brothers were soaking in the cool, damp richness of the well, the furniture they lowered in was soaking as well. The introduction of the furniture began a growth of mold and mildew and rot that first tainted the well and then outright poisoned it. As the furniture was slowly mildewing and molding from the outside, the cool, damp, dark back of the chairs was growing a deadly fungus. Before that fungus was discovered, it had already started to emit toxic spores, which filled the well and the two elderly brothers.
Oof. What a way to go.
Well,
That's right. That's a bit careful.
Why?
I know, but it's compulsory.
The chairs down below do not have any mold or mildew or actual spores. It's all done to replicate what happened. If you notice, the chairs do look like they're molded and mildewed, but it's just paint. We've just painted them to look that way, and we check them regularly. Make sure that no unusual funguses are growing on the back of the chairs.
Very good. I'd hate to be exposed to some mildew that could kill me while I was on a museum tour, so that's very good to know.
That's right.
You say you're quite a fun guy, Ambrose.
Oh my god. Who invited this guy?
Oh, thanks.
I'm not standing over that side.
What? Oh. Yeah, nearly hit my head.
Far beneath a beautiful country estate lie a strange fate for those unfortunate enough to have encountered a pair of mad noblewomen. They had a secret which would have run the blood cold in those aristocratic circles that they kept themselves in. The mad women had developed an unusual diet preference: human toenails. Half-hearted soldier, drunken sailor, or sea wench, they were all preyed upon by the sisters. They went into the darkened night to round up victims. They would wait outside tavern and dance hall for those inebriated enough not to put up a fight. Bag over their head and about 6 spins around was usually enough to knock out even the stoutest person conscious when they had been plied with enough drinks. They would be locked into the chambers here on each side of me, and their feet scrubbed, cleaned, and their toenails carefully trimmed, so as not to waste any of the precious resource. But I know what you're all wondering. Why don't you just pull them out at the root? After all, that's the sensible thing to do. Well, the sisters weren't monsters, you see. They were just hungry, so very hungry. Each victim awakened, dumped on the outskirts of town, shoeless, sockless, pants rolled to their knees, but their feet had been beautifully scrubbed, and their toenails had been perfectly trimmed. The sisters were caught one day when they mistook a pair of sleepy officers for inebriated, and then were overcome by them, threatening with having their toenails pulled out at the root. After all, it is the sensible thing to do. The sisters confessed to the entire ruse. Afterward, they fell out of grace, and from high society, they took on new identities. They began to work in a wash house, trimming the nails of those who came in to bathe, thereby continuing to feed their insane and insatiable hunger.
That's so weird.
We have the strange, usual, and the odd here, so you're going to encounter a little of each. That's a good thing. We like to hear that here.
Oh my god.
No.
I regret giving him popcorn.
A new beautiful island freeport was too close to a deepwater ocean trench. The frequent ship traffic to and from the island angered the residents of the deep waters. Many different creatures made their way out of the depths to investigate the new disturbance. Swirling waters mixed the warm water of the surface into the formerly cool waters of the trench, as well as introducing new types of detritus deep into the depths. Mermaids out of the trench seemed to grow much angrier, becoming a constant menacing presence in the waters. To teach citizens defensive tactics to protect themselves against the angry mermaids, as well as to inspire people and ensure that they would not fear nearing the profitable Freeport. The Freeport ordered a training institute just off the shore. Seen before you here are the standard issue training form, as well as the specialized mermaid training form that was developed at the institute. Normally housed in deeper water, it was used to teach citizens techniques to avoid or defend against angry mermaids. The mermaids seemed to realize something was occurring at the Freeport, and they really began to increase their violence. Eventually, they began to investigate the institute itself, making their way to the shoreside, where the training forms were stationed in the waters. Instead of damaging the training forms, mermaids began to study them, possibly believing them to be figures in reverence of themselves. It is believed that they took this as a sign the mermaid was a respected neighbor, and led them to stop their attacks completely. Unintentionally, these forms did work to protect the citizens. No one trained to defend themselves against the mermaids ever had to, and the mermaid forms were left in the water as a sign of continued mutual respect. But luckily for the Freeport, the mermaids had not witnessed the defensive techniques used on these forms. Any questions at all?
What technique was it?
What's that?
What did they do? What technique?
The techniques they used? Oh, they used a variety of different ones. I'm not positive myself. I wasn't part of the training. We ended up with one of the training forms. As you can see, it represents a beautiful mermaid, and the head has the beautiful eyes and very long eyelashes of a mermaid.
Yeah.
Yes.
The mermaids were kind of dummies about the whole thing.
Mm.
Tiger?
Sorry. It's just, sorry.
We'll use you as a dummy soon if you don't behave.
Alright, okay, I'll try.
All right. If you'll turn behind you here.
Yeah!
And to the left. But a skilled blacksmith made a fortune on board a ship repairing the broken old wood stoves of a frozen polar region, a fortune he intended to keep. Looking around his ship one day, he realized he had a dozen wood stoves and no one had claimed them after they had been repaired. Needing to both remove the extra weight from his ship, but also to find a more suitable place to keep his treasure safe, he left the polar region for his home, built on a warm elephant island. You see, he owned a small piece of that island that included a swamp. The swamp was home to many horrendous beasts, the least of which were an endless amount of spiders. He knew the perfect location for a hideaway for his treasure trove was a well-hidden cavern on the edge of the swamp. You would never have seen it unless you were falling into it. Covered in vines and growth, it was the perfect place. Except it was home to thousands of very fast spiders. But he knew something. He knew that spiders feared one thing above all others: a larger, faster spider. to attempt to stop the spiders from living in the cavern, as well as to add an additional shock should any unfortunate soul stumble upon his treasure. He carted these old forgotten wood stoves into the darkened mouth of the cavern and created the monstrosity here beside me. Welding those stoves together and carving a stone plinth from the cavern rock itself, he successfully created a spider to frighten all spiders, and the other spiders all fled in fear, leaving him free to place his treasures deep now into the delightfully spider-free cavern. He went back to making more and more treasure, and readied himself at a time for a return to the caverns. Upon his return, he was looking forward to that spiderless cavern. See, he had fought his way through them, all throughout the swamps. When he arrived at the cavern, he found it filled, not with spiders, with elephants, bursting at the seams with elephants. They chased him away from the entrance all the way back to his ship, over and over. For you see, the only thing keeping the elephants out of the cavern were the spiders, and the only thing luring them into the cavern was the new multiple-armed scratching post someone had kindly placed there for their use.
Freaking elephants, man.
It doesn't always go away, does it? The poor,
No, it does
poor
not.
man.
That
I really
actually
don't
scares
like
our
elephants
spiders. Can
very
we
much
make one?
myself.
It's huge. Yeah, but what happens when... No, what happens when you get drunk and you think it's a huge spider?
Oh God!
Yep.
Yeah.
That would actually be hysterical.
You don't want to forget yourself that you've set a trap for yourself. That would be horrifying. Here is what was once a beautiful, marvelous circus organ. The organ was a modern wonder. It needed no one to play it, and it had no keys at all. In fact, it produced sound through steam, with a series of reused water and stovepipes, and it could play the most beautiful melodies. It was pulled on 3 carts behind 3 elephants as the circus parade would arrive in the town. The organ would play all the while to let the residents know the circus had arrived. The circus fell into ruin after the death of the ringmaster and owner. The ringmaster was thrown higher than the high wire act one evening by a pair of elephants looking to escape circus life. The audience, seeing the tragedy unfold, sent out warnings to all that they knew: avoid the circus at all risk of peril. The organ was purchased at an auction of items from the circus by a group of ne'er-do-wells with a plan. They would travel with the reassembled pipe organ port to port, playing friendly melodies for tips throughout the day. They would quieten as the shops closed, people headed into their neighboring homes. Then in the late hours of the evening, they would stoke the fires of the steam heater until they were raging. The beautiful music produced with gentle steam pressure became a howling, screeching, clangorous noise. This caused the residents to flee their homes in terror, and the horses and animals battered their stalls, not knowing what beast was capable of such howling noises. The ne'er-do-wells would slow their fires eventually, but only to issue this proclamation. The fires would be stoked repeatedly, until the township was able to come up with a predetermined fee to pay the ne'er-do-wells so that they could leave their port in peace. The ne'er-do-wells landed in a port as usual late one afternoon. They played the beautiful music until the shops closed and the residents began to leave, and then they waited. And they went to the box on the top deck to get the wood for the fires. Instead of the residents being quietly asleep, the entire town was standing row after row, lining the edge of the harbor, staring quietly, directly at their vessel. The water was already flowing into the ship by the time the ne'er-do-wells could react. The residents had been made aware of this approaching ship 2 days prior, and they had already formed a plan, all of their own. The pipe organ was dismantled and trod upon, resulting in the warped, discolored remaining pipes you see behind me here today.
Well, it sounds like me they kind of deserved it, so, you know.
Yeah.
But did the pipes deserve all that? I mean, the poor pipes. They started life so kindly.
I mean, the pipes didn't deserve it, but, you know, it's the responsibility of the people that use them, right?
Yeah, that's true. You take your own responsibility into your hands. You have to be careful. That's part of the warnings here. BoggOdd Oddities Museum. Make sure that you steer clear of the strange, the odd, and the unusual. And in that vein, be careful not to fall into the grave in the next room.
The what?
I'm sure it's fine.
Okay, I had this thought when I said last time, but does anyone just really want to sit at the edge and like dangle their feet in? Because I kind of do, but I don't.
Edge and
Okay,
dangle.
I don't trust.
I feel like Alice would push me in.
There's a chance. It's
Probably after I bap you over the head with Auntie's cucumber.
Yeah, fair. Oh, I'm not over here.
Oh, Brad, are we all here?
I think so.
There's everyone. Below us here lies the coffin of the final husband of the widow of Shallow Creek. She was called the widow because she had buried 12 husbands, 11 of whom were deceased. She begged for help from the townspeople. She said she was being haunted by the vengeful ghost of her most recently dead husband. The widows of the town showed up to help her and formed a group which would sit in the home of the widow while she tried to get some rest. It was a quick rotation, for you see they all eventually stared straight again into the eyes of the man they used to know. Each night someone sat with her just before the skies began to lighten. There was a shuffling behind them. One after another, widows fled that still dark and creaking home. Once that group was exhausted, the widow still pleaded to the town for help. The young single men were sent next, as they were thought to be less prone to fright. It was the same story, however. They all ran for their lives after gazing into the eyes of the dead man. The oldest woman in town felt far too frail, asked, "May I go next?" She sat slumped forward next to the warm fire in a chair, eyes closed, back to the room, when the ghost appeared. His long bony fingers reaching, clawing, slid up over the back of the chair and on the woman's frail, thin neck. From outside the home, a blood-curdling scream that chased wolves into their dens was cut short. Townsfolk, worried for the frail lady but humoring her, had their ears open for her calls. A number of them reached the steps to the cabin at the same time, and they clambered to the front door, flinging it open. Standing tall over two bodies was the frail old woman. What no one realized is that the oldest woman in town was also the wisest. Unable to sleep well in the cold nights due to her old bones, she slept during the warm daylight hours. Every night, she watched the supposedly dead husband of the widow of Shallow Creek creep into house after house in town. For you see, as people went to sit with the terrified widow, her very much still alive husband was looting the houses of people who came to help her. He would arrive later, scare the people back to their homes, and show what he had taken to his wife. The oldest woman, however, who had watched the man creep through the towns, went prepared, rolling pin in her sleeve, to expose the ruse of the widow of Shallow Creek.
Damn.
Damn.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a smart
Old
lady.
lady.
Her.
Yeah, she got wiser with age, it happens.
You hear that, Morgan? You'll be fine.
Wow. So rude.
Deep in a prison lie a cold, dark, windowless cell. A guard routinely traversed the corridors. One prisoner they had not planned on having it know the history of was a magician, trained in the art of lockpicking. Picking that lock came easily, but getting out of the area proved more difficult. The cell was at the end of a long U-shaped corridor. The prisoner had nothing but time to plan, though, as they sat in waiting. Day in, day out, they watched the guards, and they finally thought of the plan. The guards always took the same pathway through the loop, and they realized they could not go toward the guards or be seen. But if they went ahead of the guards, they might just make it out ahead of them. One problem, though, was the bed would surely be empty as they were on their way toward the exit and freedom, and that would raise the alarm bell. In an effort to fool the guards, they began to put away slices of bread and sausages in their pillowcase. This plan was nearly ruined twice on unplanned laundry days, when they had to gorge themselves on the stashed away food. But finally, a dark moonless night came, dark enough for the plan to work. They neatly arranged the old bits of bread and sausage to form a vague figure in their bed, just enough for the guards to see a body asleep and to give them time to slip away. The plan went smoothly, and the prisoner was able to escape perfectly. Guards eventually discovered the ruse, however, and knowing the head of the guards and knowing what they had to do, they sat down for a most unwanted feast.
You're welcome to look closer at the exhibit.
Sure, you can inspect the body if you like.
Actually, cool.
That's pretty smart.
Just an actual human body. They can't hurt them.
That's really good. Some would say.
Oh my god. The worst.
Here before you is the interior of the city offices of the Butcher of Butterfly Lane, as he was later known. Shown on the table are the actual tools that he used. Fancying himself a dentist, he was able to convince the local populace that he was legitimate. Using a plant known for its hallucinogenic properties, he was able to cause patients to, in essence, mentally leave their bodies while they were tied to this bed here before you. He would then remove all of the teeth of the victim, promising only repairs to their teeth. It was so much easier to convince them afterward that all their teeth were bad, and therefore none of the work, which he could not do, need be performed. Human teeth were a prized and highly valued form of carotenoid, similar to bone, but with a much sturdier structure once refined properly. The fraudulent dentist would leave office early in the day, and that was thought odd by the community, considering how many desperately needed his dental work. He had a nefarious reason for always leaving early. He was tainting the town's water supply with ground-up giant squid innards. The innards still contained the powerful acids that the squid used to break down sharp shells that they ingested in their feeding cycle. And even once ground up and dispersed, those innards still had enough acidic quality to weaken the teeth of the city dwellers so that they all needed dental work, and they supplied him with the teeth he so desperately needed. Any questions so
I mean,
far?
in that guy's defense, he wasn't a dentist.
Alright, but pretended to be a dentist.
Oh my god.
We're not positive where it happened. We don't have an exact location. You have to watch for your own teeth, even if you are in the molar region.
You know, it's great. It's great having you around too.
Nice.
Yep.
In a remote cabin, something unusual happened. The owner of the cabin grew older and more tired as years were catching up to him. He thought he needed a way to bring vigor back into his life. He found a place where he could, for a price, order a tincture, promising to bring just that to him. He placed the order, gave his address, and was told to wait 6 nights, and he would hear a loud bang on the door. He wasn't to look out for the courier, only to wait for that 6th night. On the arranged night he sat patiently waiting. A loud bang was heard at the darkest portion of the night, nearly jumping from his skin. He realized only then he was a bit stronger still than he even realized. He waited a moment, opened the door to retrieve the package bound in hides and tied to a large stone. He thought the bottle was unusually shiny, until he realized a portion of that shine was coming from inside the bottle. He swirled the bottle through his fingers and stared at the cork top. He thought of his plan, and he glanced up at the portrait of his loved one. He realized this bottle may hold more than he bargained for. What if this turned back his aging? What if it stopped him from aging at all? Could he decide when he was through with this powerful elixir? He sighed, and he realized, now that he had the power in his hand, what he missed wasn't his youth. It was what was part of his youth, and that wasn't coming back. Angry mostly at himself, he flung the bottle into the fireplace, holding the back of it. It grew and roared like a tiger and spit flames across the room, eventually settling back down into a normal fireplace once again. But he was left wondering, what magic was in that tincture? And he vowed to himself he would never again try to recapture that which is meant to be left in the past.
He was really potion his luck.
Do you sit there throughout the entire thing and just have a pun ready?
Mhm.
Yep.
Oh,
My
Makes
God.
you wonder what would have happened to the man, though. You know, if he'd actually drunk it.
oh, what would he have turned into?
Yeah. And then you came along and you ruined it.
Cargo freighter named the Sea Slicer sailed through a fog-shrouded sea. It lurched high and low in the sea, crates groaning at its sides. On board, amongst the crew, stood a mere deckhand. As the ship passed through the shimmer, a mysterious event occurred. Every person, in fact every creature everywhere, disappeared, except for the deckhand. Calling out to anyone else, he realized he was totally alone. In fear for the crates, the contents, and the ship itself, the deckhand began to panic. He didn't understand the workings of the ship enough to get the ship under control, and without a crew to sail and pull the sails and manage the ship's wheel, it seemed a task that he couldn't accomplish alone. Hello? Hello? Help! He pleaded. His plea was heard by the only other thing that inhabited the world. The figure stood just before him on the other side of the cabin door, but he could immediately tell it was not human. It had no facial features, and in fact it had no features at all. The ship careened out of control, and just as the figure reached through the doorway, the ship crashed on the shore of a desolate island. The deckhand thrown overboard and into the water just by the shoreline. While running from the ship and the figure, the deckhand began to realize he wasn't breathing normally. With every breath he took, it grew shallower and shallower. The further he made it from the figure, the less he could breathe. The world grew darker and darker, until finally he went unconscious. The deckhand awakened to find himself all the way back where his voyage began. But the crew, the ship, and the cargo were never seen again. They say the shimmer figure waits just over the shimmer for its next crew. Will you be the only one it spares, or will you never be seen again?
Well, saying that, if I age anymore, I'll be joining his crew next.
And you also have to worry. We did hear a tale of someone going through the shimmer and meeting 2 of them, and they saw their future and their past.
There was a future self and a past self. They met their own crew on the other side of the shimmer. There's some mysterious things going on in this world, and we think that possibly the shimmer figure is duplicating people out in the world so that there are even more crew, for whatever the purpose.
God, imagine a world with 2 Ambers.
You beat me to that punchline. Not gonna lie.
I don't want to imagine that.
I don't want to imagine
The
it either,
world
but too
would
late.
be a
I'm already imagining it.
fantastic place.
That's what's like, man.
Describing this place, that was the worst. That was definitely the scariest thing.
Wow.
As we come to the next exhibit, we ask that you do not reach into the exhibit for fear that you might be pulled into it.
Reaching.
We're all just blocking Xavier's view right now.
And if you need some popcorn's right behind you.
The story of this printing press begins in the polar north. The freighter Frozen Sails was used to deliver supplies to a far-flung polar research base, where the Frozen Institute was located. On the slippery top deck of Frozen Sails, a crew member called out eerily, "Who's there?" When they heard voices in the frozen fog crying, the calling out stopped the other crew in their tracks, and soon enough they could hear it too. Enchanting voices. They were calling out not in sorrow, however, but in song. By the time that they could raise the alarm, none of them wanted to any longer. Below decks, a sleeping crew member who would be on a late shift was awakened. They were slid out of bed and across the sleeping quarters. Just as the crew member made it halfway out the topside, the sails, which were sitting now untended, whirled and snapped violently in the wind. The heeling of the ship was so intense that the crew members who were not already overboard were dumped overboard. The crew member was awestruck with the horror before them. The crew member had plugged their ears with rolled cotton to stop a loud crew from waking them. They were oblivious to the sounds coming out of the ocean, but they knew in an instant what was happening. They were under the attack of the siren's song. The masts, weakened by the whirling and the forceful snapping, groaned and gave way. They crashed down through the decks below, damaging the hull in the process. The crew member climbed them into a dinghy, lowered it, looked around as their crewmates nearby sickeningly dove underwater and disappeared into the now still blue, freezing abyss. The survivor rode and rode for hours in the frozen waters until they reached land. They staggered onto the frosty shores, called out, and collapsed. They had made it to the island of the Frozen Institute, and they would very soon be found. The same cannot be said for the crew of the Frozen Sails, or the ship itself. They all drifted down into the darkened depths. The survivor decided to print a book to tell the tale of that horrendous day, and they used the boards from the dinghy that they survived in to make this printing press behind me. And they printed their book there. It is said the sea sirens placed a curse on that dinghy because they did not get a chance to clear the oceans completely that day, and the now cursed printing press behind me can at times call out to those nearby to climb into its gnashing jaws. It is rumored to have eventually devoured the very crew member who created it. And we wonder now, is it satisfied? Or will it strike again?
Hopefully not.
Morgan, go try using.
No.
That's a good one. I'm quite impressed.
Oh. Shut up.
Moving forward.
You're having a good time. You're having fun.
Please come forward and stand in front of the double doors.
Yes.
Oh.
One has made it in. I'll open the door.
Whoa.
What? Oh.
In front of you stands Hera, the oddity of Itchmeadow Farm. She was born during a hurricane, and it was believed she was born in mid-air the wrong way around. She has been utterly convinced that she is standing the right way up, and she cannot be corrected. She does not use her hooves. Instead, she drags herself along with her horns and wiggles side to side like a serpent to get around. She is able to see the berries on the underside of the bushes that the other animals miss. So maybe she was an adaptation of the species in order to fill a void. Her hooves must be filed down regularly, as she does not wear them down naturally. She produces what her original owners at the farm referred to as the wrong way milk, in that it comes out the wrong way around. It is said that by not hanging down into the udders and cooling off, the milk is able to stay hotter for a longer period of time, thereby producing a sweeter, more mature milk with a caramel-flavored undertone that is prized over regular milk. Boggert has samples there for you of the swilk that we have here that comes from her herself. If you would like to try a sample of this richer, sweeter milk, step ahead.
I wonder if that is natural adaptation, evolution, if you will.
Oh, it's very nice though.
Can you just not?
Nope, I'm afraid it is impossible.
You're welcome to
It's very
step.
nice though.
Ow!
You're welcome to step in and get a closer look at her if you like. She
Nice.
doesn't. She's very kind.
Yeah, if you have any photos or you can take those pictures.
Yes. It's a lot easier to get to the others this way. They're not in the complicated position anymore.
I mean, at least it's really easy for us to just eat, right?
Well, I wouldn't take it direct. We'd like to wash it here first.
Yes, we wash her milk.
Her milk
How
is...
long, how long did you say she's been like that?
That's been some time now, ever since she was born. You see, she was born the wrong way around during a hurricane. It's believed that she came out in midair, and she's convinced she's standing the right way up. There is no way to correct her at this point.
So even if you, like, you know, roll her over, she just...
She doesn't like it. She just rolls herself back again.
See,
Yes.
it's at this point I'm concerned in that if I truly am just imagining all of this, why would I imagine that?
I don't know, it's kind of cute, that one.
Again,
It
many
is.
people have asked this question and are still confused to this day.
On your way out, behind you is a desk. We have a couple of guest books in there if anybody's interested in signing the guest book. There's also blank letters if anybody wants to write a review. We'll add those to the guest book at a later point. But you can feel free to drop those off in the drop boxes here or outside the doors.
If you would give me just a moment, I'm going to be thinking about something myself.
This was really cool.
Yeah, it was really good. I enjoyed it.
Oh, well, that's totally to be expected. Yeah, yeah. I miss the spiders.
Did you enjoy yourself, Edgar?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely. That one's cool.
Very smart.
Stupid king got what he deserved, didn't he? So then they ended up with a queen, and her dad got, you know, freed and stuff. Happy ending.
I mean, I'm assuming she was a nicer roller. We don't know.
Well, we hope she was.
Yeah,
Well,
probably
yes.
worse.
Can't have been much worse.
And also, the museum is going to constantly evolve and change. New exhibits start arriving throughout the season. So things will get refreshed, and so we encourage you to come back and enjoy another tour at a later date.
Oh, we appreciate that. Like I said, it's been a fantastic trip. I've enjoyed this very much. So we will definitely come back when you have some new stuff up and available.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. This was very nice. I enjoyed the stories.
Oh, thank you
And
so
the
much.
exhibit itself. They're very interesting.
Yes, and a lot of it's word of mouth to tell people to hear the warnings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, that's why we told Amber, so you guys need to come here, and then he was, incapable of reading, but...
No, I was
at
so
least
excited.
listen.
I was just so excited. I was like, oh my god, I want to come and visit.
That is really cool.
It is really, really, really cool. Just so you know, I've left in your donations box, so just in case other people can kind of take it out, just so you know it's there.
Oh, thank you so
appreciate
much.
the tour. That was fantastic.
Yeah, we gladly accept tips. It's not easy to run a museum and be able to afford some of the exhibits.
I bet not. I bet not.
Yeah. We've done a really good job with the place.
Yeah, you
The
have.
building's lovely.
It is very, very good.
Oh, I just turned around and got freaked out by the spider stove
It's
thing.
super scary. I hate it.
I was not expecting it.
So how's the postal business going?
Busy?
Oh, perfect.
Excuse me, sir.
Been kind of, well, I was going to say it's been kind of busy and somehow quiet because I've been kind of sick, so I haven't been sailing around as much, but...
I left the review and the tips in the box.
But it's been pretty busy.
Thank you so much. It's not required at all, but we appreciate any. Uh-oh.
I think the
Oh,
shock
thank
has
you. We
got
left
to
some as
Madeline.
well.
Xavier,
Oh, yes.
I think the shock has got to Madeline. You might need to carry her to ship.
I'll carry her.
Oh, no.
Oh, dear.
Can I just say, madam,
Yes.
you are an
Amber,
absolute
did you
natural
just hang on a drink again?
storyteller. You,
She just
What
feels
about
so
give me
at
a
peace
drink?
here.
What's that supposed to mean?
Are you sure we're 2 for 2, you know, each time we...
I was about to offer you
I do
both
appreciate
alcohol.
that.
I'm not.
Yeah, thank you. Wonderful experience.
Oh shit, I dropped her.
Nah, I'm joking. You are. You two. Come on.
Make sure everybody's out. I'm getting ready to close the doors. Closing the doors. Making sure no one's inside. Closing the doors. Closing the doors. Closing the doors.
What we got? I don't think she's using magazine, but I hope she's not anyway.
All right. Yeah. If you know who it came from, it's usually safe.
Don't think so.
That's
like
a lot of
waiver
questions
for
in
me
the space of
accepting
10
this drink.
seconds.
Possible side effects.
So what are you lot up to now? You got posts you need to deliver, or are you free? Because we're about to go to where are we going, Eddie? If you're interested.
I want to say that we've got some stuff to deliver.
Technically, we have like 10 letters to drop off.
Oh, I mean, yeah, that's fair enough. If you gotta
I
go and drop
personally
off
am going
letters.
to take a small nap, but yeah.
Hope you enjoyed your visit.
Yeah, it's about Morgan's bed.
It was absolutely
was
fantastic. We appreciate it. Yeah, it was
Brilliant.
brilliant.
Thank you so
very
much.
Yeah, be sure to
I
Yes,
tell
hope you
thank you.
don't mind. I grabbed some posters and I would like to put them in my tavern while people are waiting for their food. They can read on this and maybe come over here.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. Just tell people to come and hear the warnings. We're trying to make sure everyone knows all of the strange things that are out there.
Well, in that case, you need an exhibit of Morgan. All right, next time I come back, I need an exhibit of Morgan in there somewhere, and then we
What
can.
is your
Amber.
problem?
With us the whole time. She's perfectly.
Yeah, you hear that? I'm fine.
I'd love a flyer too. Did you grab a lot of them?
Oh, yes, I think I grabbed like 20 of them.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'll do some marketing for this place as well. Yeah, this was brilliant.
Me too.
Much. We really appreciate everyone coming. We just want people to know we don't want to frighten anyone, but we do want people to know all about the weird stuff in the world.
Yeah, I was talking to one of the Navy guys, like one of the few Navy guys that actually help us, and he was like, he would bring a ship of like shore leave people down here. So that would be cool.
Be wonderful. That would be great.
Just gotta make sure they know how to tell time.
Oh,
Did it not all work out in the end?
Shut up.
that's fine.
Thank you.
Yeah,
so
we
much.
appreciate that. Yeah, that was great of you.
You're very welcome. We do appreciate you being here today and taking your time to visit BoggOdd Oddities Museum. Be sure to tell your friends.
Oh, we will definitely pass on to everybody that we come across. This is something they should come.
Yes.
Oh, thank you so much.
Not a problem. Thank you for your time. We very greatly
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Love you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye now. Thank you.
I as well.
You folks have a great night.
You too, Xavier.
Good night.
What? Why is she? Why?
She's
oh,
crab
okay.
walking. Okay,
I
there.
thought she was moving then.
I thought she's one of those clockworks. She was
I
moving.
was- Yeah. That is creepy. Oh, the first time I was here, I was walking along the table bit because I thought it was funny, and then someone was like, "Why are you making the museum taste you?" And now I feel weird about it.
Oh no.
Yeah.
It's the table. It's not a real tongue.
I
It's
remember
a...
falling asleep out here.
You went inside to drag you out.
Yeah, you were inside.
Yeah, you're all right. They helped you. They wanted to clear you from the museum and all of the overwhelming displays.
Ah,
She felt at peace inside the museum. The best sleep you probably had in ages, right?
I've heard that a nice glass of
It's
milk.
definitely asleep.
I've heard a nice glass of milk before bedtime helps put you in a nicer rest. So, if you
Apparently so.
Wilkett may have done something there.
Yeah, I think maybe that's what did it. Warm glass
We'll
of
have
milk.
to add that to the disclaimer.
okay.
This
Well,
Wilk will make you
I
go
gotta
to
get
sleep.
back to me.
We should,
I gotta get back to my ship. Thank you very much again for the tour. I very much appreciate it. Sorry about the time problem. It was Morgan's fault.
Oh, it's all right.
Uh,
Thank you for stopping in.
That's
It
okay.
totally
No problem.
wasn't. We gave him a flyer.
completely was Morgan's fault. Don't worry about it. Sorry.
Wow. It's lovely to see you guys again.
It is. Great.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll be back here soon.
Indeed, thank you.
Take care out there on the seas.
Take care, both. Thank
Safe
you.
sails.
Bye.
And a safe shimmer to you as well. Oh.
Yes, hopefully.
Oh, God.
Hopefully.
Thanks for the tour. It was
Oh.
great.
Thank you.
Okay.
Why is everything scary?
Bye.
But Boggert, are we taking a break now before we start the tours?
Yeah, we probably do.
All right, that sounds good.
Okay, Chad, I'm going to take a lunch or dinner break. So I will be back here in a few minutes. Thanks for joining me and see you here shortly. Bye now.